Today I am going to talk about the challenges, scope and opportunity of organizational behavior. Through this module, you will be able to know about the scope in organizational behavior studies, explore the opportunities that come through these studies. You will also learn about the challenges of organizational behavior. Let me start by giving you an introduction to the scope and opportunities of OB. Well, the field of organizational behavior is a distinguished area of valuable knowledge. Organizations are simply not concrete physical structures. They consist of people working as individuals and as groups, both independently and interdependently towards some purpose. Hence, the need to study how people act in organizations in a systematic manner is the need of the day. Organizational behavior knowledge benefits not only the employee as an individual but also the financial health of an organization. Organizational behavior practices cause better financial performance. In spite of its enormous payoffs, organizational behavior has its own limitations. It cannot get rid of all the vices in organizational settings in totality, but it can reduce them considerably. The major setbacks in the area of organizational behavior arise from behavioral performance management, motivation, groups and teams, powers, and politics. We are going to talk about the behavioral performance management first and foremost. Behavior performance management is not a good idea to be tried for a while and then cast aside for some other good idea. It is a science that explains how people behave. In a changing world, the science of behavior must remain the bedrock, the starting place. There is a considerable body of research that has evaluated the effectiveness of behavioral performance management in general and the 5-step OB model approach in particular. It has been widely applied in manufacturing as well as in non-manufacturing service-oriented organization. I will summarize some of these areas. Number 1 is the employee productivity. The performance improvement is for both quality and quantity of employee output and cuts across virtually organizational settings and all organizational settings and all intervention techniques. Second is absenteeism and tardiness. Studies have examined this area that have typically used small monetary incentives or lottery systems for attendance or promptness or punishers for absenteeism or tardiness. Safety and accident prevention. Companies using dangerous equipment are very concerned about safety. However, because accidents occur at such a relatively low frequency, most studies have focused on reducing identifiable safety hazards or increasing safe behaviors. For example, using safety gears while working. Sales performance. Sales managers have traditionally relied on internal motivation techniques to get their salespersons to improve their performance. One behavioral performance management consultant tells about a company that gave its sales personnel a typical high-powered multimedia training program which supposedly taught them effective selling skills. Let's talk about motivation. Motivation is the basic psychological process. It is the external force which derives one's actions towards achievement of his or her goals. Motivation is categorized into two groups: primary motives, which include physiological, biological and unlearned or primary motives. All other needs are secondary motives. Now, what is a need? Needs are created whenever there is a physiological or psychological imbalance. Drives. Physiological and psychological drives are action oriented and provide an energizing thrust towards reaching an incentive. Incentives. At the end of the motivation cycle is the incentive, defined as anything that will alleviate a need and reduce a drive. If we convert this motivation process in terms of organizational behavior, then need is the task which is required to be accomplished. Drives are the goal directed behavior that lead to the alleviation of a need, whereas incentives are the rewards one gets when the drives are reduced and the needs are alleviated. Work motivation of an employee in an organization is explained with the theory of Maslow's theory of motivation in the form of hierarchy of work. Maslow has talked about self-actualization, which is the personal growth or a realization of potential as the highest need of an employee. Let me elaborate upon Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a theory which proposed by him in 1943. Maslow subsequently extended the idea to include his observations of humans' innate curiosity. His theories paralleled many other theories of human development, some of which focus on describing the stages of growth in humans. Maslow used the terms physiological, safety, belongingness, love, esteem, and self-actualization and self-transcendence to describe the pattern that human motivations generally move through. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is often portrayed in the shape of a pyramid, with the largest, most fundamental level of needs at the bottom and the need for self-actualization at the top. While the pyramid has become a de facto way to represent this hierarchy, Maslow himself never used a pyramid to describe these levels in any of his writings on the subject. The most fundamental and basic four layers of the pyramid contain what Maslow called deficiency needs or D needs: esteem, friendship, love and security, and physical needs. It is these deficiency needs, if they are not met, with the exception of the most fundamental, which is the physiological need, there may not be a physical indication, but the individual will feel anxious and tense. The most fundamental and basic four layers of the pyramid contain what Maslow called the deficiency needs or the D needs: esteem, friendship and love, security, and physical needs. If these deficiency needs are not met, with the exception of the most fundamental or the physiological needs at the bottom, there may not be a physical indication, but the individual will certainly feel anxious and tense. Maslow's theory suggests that the most basic level of needs must be met before the individual will strongly desire or focus motivation upon the secondary or the higher level needs. Maslow also coined the term meta-motivation to describe the motivation of people who go beyond the scope of the basic needs and strive for constant betterment. The needs that I'm going to talk about, the first and foremost is the physiological needs. As the name suggests, these are the basic needs of an individual, which include food, clothing, shelter, air, water, etc. These needs are basically related to the survival and maintenance of human life. Above the physiological needs, right at the bottom of the hierarchy pyramid, come the safety needs. These needs are also very important for human beings. Everybody wants job security, protection against danger, safety of property, etc. Above the safety needs are the social needs. These needs emerge from the society itself. Man is a social animal. These needs become important. For example, love, affection, belongingness, friendship, conversation, etc. Above the social needs are the fourth set of needs, which are called the esteem needs. These needs relate to desire for self-respect, recognition and respect for others. And above all are the self-actualization needs. These are the needs of the highest order, and these needs are found in those persons whose previous four needs are satisfied. This will include need for social service, meditation, etc. Let's talk about Alderfer's ERG theory. In 1969, Alderfer simplified the Maslow's theory by categorizing hierarchy of needs into three categories. The first category was physiological and safety needs, which are merged in existence needs. The second are the belonging needs, which are named as relatedness needs. And the third are the self-esteem and self-actualization needs, which are merged in growth needs. Moving on to Herzberg's two-factor theory. Friedrich Herzberg introduced his two-factor theory in 1959. He suggested that there are two types of factors which affect motivation, and they do it in very different ways. Number one are the hygiene factors. A series of hygiene factors create dissatisfaction if individuals perceive them as inadequate or inequitable. Yet, individuals will not be significantly motivated if these factors are viewed as adequate or good. Hygiene factors are extrinsic and include factors such as salary or remuneration, job security, and working conditions. Motivators. These are intrinsic factors such as the sense of growth achievement, recognition, responsibility, and personal growth. The hygiene factors determine dissatisfaction, and motivators determine the satisfaction. Herzberg's theory conforms with the satisfaction theories, which assert that a satisfied employee tends to work in the same organization, but this satisfaction does not always result in better performance. In other words, satisfaction does not correlate with productivity. There are different incentives which are given to motivate employees. Now, but what are incentives? Incentive is an act or promise for greater action. It is also called as a stimulus to greater action. Incentives are something which are given in addition to the wages. It means it is a kind of additional remuneration or benefit to an employee in recognition of achievement or better work. Incentives provide a spur or zeal in the employees for better performance. It is a natural thing that nobody acts without a purpose behind. Therefore, a hope for a reward is a powerful incentive to motivate the employees. Besides monetary incentive, there are also other stimuli which can drive a person to better. This will include the job satisfaction, job security, promotion, and pride of accomplishment. Therefore, incentives really can sometimes work to accomplish the goals of a concern. The needs of incentives can be many. They can increase productivity, they can drive or arouse a stimulus work, they can enhance commitment in work performance. Psychologically, they can satisfy a person, which will lead to job satisfaction. They also help in shaping the behavior or outlook of subordinate towards work. They inculcate zeal and enthusiasm towards work. They get to maximize the capabilities of an individual or an employee, and these capabilities can be exploited and utilized maximally. Therefore, management has to offer the following two categories of incentives in order to motivate their employees. Number one can be monetary incentives. These incentives which satisfy the subordinates by providing them rewards in terms of money. Money has been recognized as a chief source of satisfying the needs of people. Money is also helpful to satisfy the social needs by possessing various material items. Therefore, money not only satisfies psychological needs, but also it satisfies the security and social needs. Therefore, in many factories, various wage plans and bonus schemes are introduced to motivate and stimulate the people to work. There can be non-monetary incentives as well. Besides the monetary incentives, there are certain non-financial incentives which can satisfy the ego and self-actualization needs of employees. These incentives, which cannot be measured in terms of money, are under the category of non-monetary incentives. Whenever a manager has to satisfy the psychological needs of a subordinate, he makes the use of non-financial incentives. Moving on to the concept of groups and teams. Besides the basic research coming out of the social psychology, a more applied focus on the impact that groups or teams have on its employee behavior. Especially, the contribution to the satisfaction and performance has received a lot of attention. I will talk about the ways to use groups to enhance satisfaction and performance of employees. Firstly, by organizing work around intact groups. Having groups charged with selection, training and rewarding of members. We can use groups to enforce strong norms for behavior with group involvement in off-the-job as well as on-the-job behavior. We can distribute resources on a group rather than on individual basis. By allowing and perhaps even promoting intergroup rivalry so as to build within group solidarity. The review of research literature determined 3 factors that can play a major role in determining the group effectiveness. Number 1 is task independence. How closely group members work together. Then is outcome independence. Whether or how group performance is rewarded. And third is potency. The members' belief that the group can be effective. Now, what is group behavior? Group behavior refers to the ways people behave in large or small group situations. People often join groups for a multitude of reasons, most frequently because membership satisfies the needs of the individual. Group membership can provide companionship, survival, security, affiliation status, power and control and achievement. There is currently no universal description of what constitutes a group, though research has identified a few common requirements that contribute to recognition of a group. Number 1 is interdependence. Individual members must depend to some degree on the output of the collective members. Second is social interaction. Accomplishing a goal requires some form of verbal or non-verbal communication among the members of a group. Perception of a group. All members of the collective must agree that they are part of a group. There should be a commonality of purpose. All the members of the collective come together and attain a common goal. Favoritism. Members of the same group tend to be positively prejudiced towards other members and discriminate in their favor. Now, how do groups influence individual behavior? Individual behavior and decision making can be influenced by the presence of others. There are both positive and negative implications of group influence on individual behavior. For example, group influence can often be useful in the context of work settings, team sports and political activism. However, the influence of groups on the individual can also generate negative behaviors. While there are many ways a group can influence behavior, we will focus on 3 phenomena, which is groupthink, group shift and de-individuation. Groupthink happens when group members faced with an important choice become so focused on making a smooth, quick decision that they overlook other possibly more fruitful options. Group shift is a phenomenon in which the initial positions of the individual members of a group are exaggerated towards a more extreme position. De-individuation happens when a person lets go of self-consciousness and control and does what the group is doing. Usually it happens with negative goals or outcomes. Moving on to another very important topic is that of power and politics. What is power and what is its influence in the organization? The famous pioneering sociologist Max Weber defined power as the probability that an actor within a social relationship will be in a position to carry out his own will despite resistance. Most of the applications of power in organizational behavior come from the 5 classifications of power by social psychologists John French and Bertram Raven. The classifications are as follows. Number 1 is reward power. This source of power is based on the person's ability to control resources and reward others. Second is the coercive power. This source of power depends upon fear. The person holds ability to inflict punishment or aversive consequences on another person, or at least to make threats that the other person believes will result in punishment or undesirable outcomes. Third is the legitimate power. This power source, identified by French and Raven, stems from the internalized values of the other persons that gives the legitimate right to the agent to influence them. Legitimate power comes from 3 major sources. Number 1, the prevailing cultural values of a society, organization or group. Number 2, people can obtain legitimate power from the accepted social structure. Number 3, the source of legitimate power can be from designated as the agent or representative of a powerful group or a person. Next is referent power. This type of power comes from the desire on the part of the other persons to identify with the agent wielding power. They want to identify with the powerful person regardless of the outcomes. Next set of power that we are going to talk about is expert power. Expert power, as the name signifies, is based on the extent to which others attribute knowledge and expertise to the power holder. Experts are perceived to have knowledge or understanding only in certain well-defined areas. Now, what are the political implications of this power? Power and politics are very closely related concepts. A popular view of organizational politics is how one can pragmatically get ahead in an organization. The political perspective of organization departs from the rational idealistic model. Walter Node suggested 4 postulates of power in an organization that help in focus on the political realities. Number 1, organizations are composed of coalitions that compete with one another for resources, energy and influence. Number 2, various coalitions will seek to protect their interests and positions of influence. Number 3, the unequal distribution of power itself has dehumanizing effects. And fourthly, the exercise of power within organizations is one very crucial aspect of the exercise of power within the larger social system. Let me summarize what I have taught you. It is a science that explains how people behave. In a changing world, the science of behavior must remain the bedrock or the starting place, for there is considerable importance of every decision that we make, every new technology we apply, and every initiative we employ in our efforts to bring out the best in people. So, organizational behavior is a science. It is a considerable body of research that has been evaluated for the effectiveness of behavioral performance management in general. Motivation is a basic psychological process. Motivation is an external force that derives one's actions towards achievement of his or her goal. Motivation is categorized into 2 groups: primary motives, which include physiological, biological and unlearned or primary motives, and the other needs are secondary motives. Besides the basic research coming out of social psychology, a more applied focus of the impact that groups or teams have on employee behavior, especially the contribution to the satisfaction and performance, has also received attention. Task independence, that is how closely group members work together, is very important. Outcome independence, whether or how group performance is rewarded. potency, which is the members' belief that a group can be effective. Max Weber defined power as the probability that one actor within a social relationship will be in a position to carry out his own will despite resistance. A popular view of organizational politics is how one can pragmatically get ahead in an organization.